From summoning powerful units straight from the deck, to the player's deck being obliterated entirely, to burst killing someone from 20 HP. These are the cards that fundamentally broke Legends of Runeterra and needed to be changed immediately. At times, Legends of Runeterra introduces a card that drastically warps the game, leading to widespread frustration among players. Throughout its history, each Runeterra region had at least one such card that disrupted the game's balance, dating all the way back to its initial release with a card from the beta, Relentless Pursuit. Right now, this card allows you to ready your attack, giving you the attack token for 4 mana at slow speed. But this wasn't always the case. A simple card like this had to be changed 3 times in total because of how it was able to create unfair scenarios that were much more than just having one additional attack. An underplayed champion from Targon shattered the entire concept of rally cards. Relentless Pursuit had an additional effect to target an ally to give +1/+1, which allowed Taric to copy that effect on a supported ally. This meant that at the same time, the rally would also be copied because it was part of the spell's text. But perhaps even more powerful, Relentless Pursuit was once a fast speed card. This meant that if the opponent tried to attack or play a removal spell, the Demacia player could use Relentless Pursuit, and as soon as the opponent's action resolved, the player would receive a new attack token instantly, preventing the opponent from playing another blocker. Relentless Pursuit was 3 mana at this time, allowing the user to bank spell mana in order to always have the rally available. But while rallying and attacking is a core identity of the Demacia region, the card that broke Shadow Isles is a completely different story. On October 28th in 2020, 5 new spells were revealed for the KDA All-Out event. One of these cards was Gohard, a 1 mana spell that drains 1 and shuffles 2 more copies of Gohard into the deck. After using Gohard 3 times, the spell transforms into Pack Your Bags, a 1 mana card that deals 5 damage to all enemies. This type of shuffle effect was completely out of flavor for Shadow Isles, because for Gohard to be good, you need a lot of draw to gain access to the additional copies, which Shadow Isles doesn't consistently have. But by choosing Bilgewater as a second region with Twisted Fate and their draw cards, this strategy turned Gohard and Pack Your Bags into a consistent board wipe for 1 mana by turn 5. As a result, Gohard received one of the largest nerfs in Runeterra history by increasing the mana cost of Pack Your Bags by 4, making it cost 5 mana in total instead of 1. However, the next card needed an entire rework to stop it from breaking the game with card combinations that were meant to be impossible. It didn't take long for Aphelios to change the game in such a way that playing units the regular way was no longer good enough. Just like Aphelios and his 5 moon weapons in League of Legends, he joined Runeterra with 5 different 2 mana spells to choose from when playing him, generating new spells as the game went on. These were simple effects like deal 3 damage to a follower or give an ally unit +2/+1 and overwhelm. But one of these spells allowed you to summon a 2-cost follower from your deck. Shortly after, Aphelios decks would only run 3 copies of a single 2-cost follower. This 3/4 challenger from Bilgewater's play effect was to deal 3 damage to itself, effectively giving you a 3/1. But by summoning this unit directly from the deck, the play effect is ignored completely, giving the Aphelios deck a 3/4 challenger for complete board control as early as turn 3. On top of that, Eye of the Dragon was another card in Lee Sin decks that benefited greatly from this ability. As a result, Aphelios had all of his spells cost nerfed to 3 mana, rendering him completely unplayable. Over a year later, Aphelios' Crescendum was reworked to summon a 2-cost follower and reverting his spells cost back to 2 mana, finally making him a playable champion once again. But there was no return to glory for the next champion. Bilgewater has a history of cards being extremely powerful and limiting card design, like Twisted Fate making it impossible for Bilgewater to have any more powerful card draw cards. And nobody would believe it, but at one point, Sunk Cost was the highest win rate card in the game, according to developer Rubenzu.
One of my colleagues, Dave Smith, told me that Sunk Cost was the highest win rate card in Legends of Runeterra. I think it was like last week, because it was only played by like a small number of players like Drizzoth and them. And generally the cards that are the highest win rate cards are cards that are not played in a lot of decks to bring down their win rate. So Sunk Cost was actually factually in our data the highest win rate card.
However, it was Nami's addition to Legends of Runeterra during the Bandel City expansion that truly frustrated players. The primary reason behind this sentiment was her role as a champion designed to enable the elusive archetype, which remains the most hated keyword by the entire Runeterra player base, even to this day. Her ability to grant +2/+1 to the weakest ally whenever a spell was used made elusive units remarkably powerful to make up for their usual weak stats. On top of Bilgewater's proficiency in generating spells, Nami had an endless supply of buffs for her allies. Her level up condition was nerfed once to delay the power spike by 1 turn, but there was another emergence of powerful Nami decks during the Darkened Saga expansion. With the addition of spells that generate even more spells like Tellstones or double cast like Momentous Choice, Nami's viability rose once again. However, changes to her +2/+1 buff, reducing it to only grant 2 attack instead, effectively killed Nami decks, as the lack of health increase left weaker units easy to take out. Bilgewater is a region with many powerful strategies that were subject to nerfs often, but surprisingly, the champion that was responsible for one of the most powerful strategies for Freljord was never nerfed directly. In the Frozen Thrall deck, Lisandra plays a central role, generating landmarks that summon powerful units after a certain number of turns have passed. To level up, Lisandra requires the player to summon units costing 8 or more mana, which was easily achievable by waiting for the landmarks to complete their countdown. Once done twice, Lisandra levels up and gives the player the Watcher in hand, an unplayable 17 mana card. After summoning 2 more 8-cost allies, the Watcher's cost reduced to 0 mana, enabling it to instantly obliterate the opponent's deck, leaving them with no cards to play. However, it was Trundle and Spectral Matron that broke the way Lisandra was played. Trundle's Pillar costs 8 mana and refills 8 mana, rapidly reducing the Watcher's cost to 0. Spectral Matron, another 8-cost card, would summon a copy of the Watcher from hand, achieving the same effect of reducing its cost to 0 in a single move. It was not uncommon to witness a control deck wiping out an entire deck by turn 8 or 9. Fortunately, this oppressive situation didn't last long, as one patch later, the Watcher was nerfed to require 5 allies that cost 8 or more and leaving players with 3 cards to use after its activation. But while the Watcher gave the player a little bit of time before they would lose to having no cards left, that wasn't how Ezreal operated. Throughout Runeterra's existence, Piltover and Zaun has undeniably remained one of the most powerful regions, with Ezreal playing a significant role in this dominance. A big selling point for Legends of Runeterra is the back and forth gameplay between players, outsmarting and outplaying the opposition. However, Ezreal stands as a stark contrast to this play pattern, notorious for single-handedly obliterating players from full health in combo-oriented decks. The chaos began with the pairing of Karma and Ezreal, where Karma's spell doubling effect allowed Ezreal to trigger his ability twice, firing 4 damage at the Nexus each time a spell was played. Originally, Ezreal's ability required fast and slow spells to resolve before activating this effect, but as Runeterra merged playing and casting a spell effect, this meant Ezreal's ability activates as soon as a spell was placed on the stack. The situation further worsened with Seraphine's spell doubling addition to the game, a champion also from Piltover and Zaun, granting even more flexibility in deck building. This resulted in one of the most miserable metas in the game's history, as players helplessly died from full HP without any chance of intervention. It is disheartening to see that decks which disregard this aspect of the game are often the most powerful. But if you think a card can only be powerful if they're able to ignore interaction, this couldn't be further from the truth. Noxus, just like Piltover and Zaun, has consistently been a top region since the game's launch, in the form of aggressive decks with powerful cards like Legion Rearguard and Decimate, or control decks with the infamous Arachnoid Sentry and Ravenous Flock combo. But it was when Scion released that the player base was introduced to a card that effectively provided infinite value. Lost Soul had the awful stat line of 5 attack and 4 health for 8 mana, but its effect was game warping. When Lost Soul is discarded, it adds a Twin Blade Revenant to the player's hand, a 4/3 challenger for 4 mana. With the Last Breath effect, create a Lost Soul in hand. This endless cycle created between the 2 cards meant it was impossible to run out of cards to play, with infinite discard fodder to enable several powerful cards like Rummage and Get Excited. This Scion deck had strong aggressive units, cards to burn down the opponent, and near infinite value through the Lost Soul. But a card that cared less about infinite value but instead consistently killed players as early as turn 5 was Kai'Sa. A new era of deck building was upon the Runeterra player base with the release of Kai'Sa. Just like with Ezreal, the back and forth between players took a back seat, and instead, decks became about one particularly powerful thing before the other player could do their powerful thing. In Kai'Sa's case, this meant activating Evolve by playing units with different keywords, so she gained access to her leveled up ability to deal damage to the entire board. Kai'Sa's Shurima region meant having access to cards like Quicksand, Rite of Negation, and Hourglass to keep her safe from any removal, ensuring that she was free to attack on turn 5. And this is where Demacia came in with the Scout keyword, Rallies, and Cataclysm. If Kai'Sa was able to copy the Scout keyword with her second skin ability, it often resulted in an immediate victory for the Kai'Sa deck. But Kai'Sa wasn't the only champion able to one-turn kill while being backed up by several protection spells. Lee Sin is a champion that started out as a 6-mana card from Ionia during the Rising Tides expansion, but was later buffed to be a 4-mana champion. This included his champion spell getting changed from Dragon's Rage to Sonic Wave, a spell with much more synergy for the way Lee Sin decks want to play. With Ionia's defensive spells and Targon's protective spells combined, Lee Sin became an unstoppable force. This also happened to be the same time Bastion was changed from 4 mana to 3 mana, turning Lee Sin into a new form of himself, as powerful as his early game jungling in League of Legends. He wielded multiple stun and recalls from Ionia, alongside Eye of the Dragon to maintain his health. Additionally, with Targon's Spell Shield and Overwhelm keyword, he became capable of consistently killing opponents from a full 20 HP. But this was nothing compared to the sheer power of the entirety of region number 10. The launch of Bandel City in Legends of Runeterra sparked concerns among many players, as it seemingly marked a turning point for the game. Several cards introduced during this expansion, such as Conchologist, Bandel City Mayor, and Loping Telescope, added more randomness to card generation. However, the true powerhouses emerged in the form of Aloof Travelers and Poppy, becoming almost mandatory to play in most decks due to their overwhelming strength. But the card that truly cemented the sheer frustration players felt when playing against Bandel City was the Bandel Tree. Once a player summoned units from 10 different regions, which was an easy task with the Bandel City's multi-region units, this landmark secured an automatic victory. This led to the creation of a versatile deck capable of using Swarm Aggro, Noxus control tools, and the alternate win condition from the Bandel Tree, equipped to deal with all and every situation to come out ahead. The Bandel Tree would keep track of all regions that were played during a game, but was eventually reworked to I've seen allies from 10 regions, which made the alternate win condition much more difficult to achieve. The release of Bandel City introduced a significant number of cards that reshaped the game in various ways, prompting months of necessary adjustments to bring the overall power level back to a reasonable state across Legends of Runeterra.